Good afternoon, welcome to Meets Rod Shop. I'm Jason. Today we're going to be working on a 1964 Ford Falcon. We're installing Dakota Digital's VHX gauge system in it. So we're going to be getting rid of the old analog gauges that no longer work in the car. The car was originally an inline 6. It now has a small block Ford 302. So it comes with this gauge pack, which goes in the old cluster. But you get your oil pressure gauge, you get your voltmeter, you'll get a tachometer, which is nice, of course, temp, and gas tank level as well. So it all fits right in the old gauge cluster, which is perfect. So it's kind of like an original install. And then with those, it also comes with the control box for it. This is the VHX control box. One thing I did change on this is I am running a GPS speedometer, so that does interface into this box. The reason I'm doing that is I am running one of the popular swaps on the older Fords is a Mustang T5, but then you'll run the GM S10 tail shaft housing in there, so it moves the shifter forward from the stock Mustang location. And in a bench seat car, it's a good idea to do that, although I'll be honest with you, I think I could have got away with it in this car. So the problem with that is I'm running the later model S10 tail shaft housing, which has the electronic Speedo. It does not have the mechanical setup. So just to simplify the installation, I just went with a GPS antenna into the GPS box to drive the speedometer instead of the cable. With that being said, let's get this started. All right, today here's the car we're working on. Like I said, it's a 1964 Ford Falcon. It's a two-door post car. It has a small block 302 with a Mustang T5 transmission in it. I've already gone and pulled out the old gauge pack, and I've cut some of the old wires that were in there. But the one thing you got to do is you got to find a good location to install the VHX gauge drive module. I'll grab that here right now. So one of the first things you want to do is you want to find a good location to put this VHX control box. You got to mount it inside the car in a dry location that's up out of the way. One thing they do say not to do is to install it inside the vehicle with a ignition box. So I'm going to go ahead and ignore those directions. I'm going to do that anyway because I already installed the ignition box. It's up underneath the seat on this car. I'm hoping we'll be able to get away with it. If not, I'll move the ignition box to the under the hood area if need be. But where this is going to go is this going to go up underneath the dash, up against the firewall. And there's a GPS control box that goes with this as well, and that will go right in the same location. So let's go ahead and get that started. All right, while I'm waiting for the nut plates to dry, I used epoxy nut plates for the control panels, the control boxes for the GPS Speedo and for the digital dash. We're going to go ahead and install the water temp sensor and the oil pressure sensor. I've already ran the two wires. Of course, I've got to loom them in correctly, but they're through the firewall that connect onto this small block Ford. I'm going to pick up the driver's side forward port on the intake for the water pressure, and the oil pressure sensor goes on the driver's side forward lower part of the block, screws in there right behind the what's the power steering pump on this. So I'm going to go ahead and drain the radiator, and then we'll go ahead and take out that water temp sensor, and we'll swap in the correct sensors. I've got the sensors installed in the car. I've got them plugged into the wiring. The next thing we need to do is we need to take the nice new gauges here, and we need to pull the bezel off the old gauges here and then install it onto the new gauges. So we'll go ahead and do that. Let me grab a Phillips tip screwdriver. So what you got here is you've got, looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 screws you got to pull off the back here to get the plastic bezel off. And one of them looks like they're broken, so that one I don't think we'll have to pull. So I've got the bezel off. This is a fantastic time to go ahead and touch this up and clean the glass, which we're not going to do because I'm lazy. But don't drop the glass either. So go ahead and peel off the plastic. And actually now I'm looking at the glass is not used, so that's why we're not going to clean it. Yeah, at least that's what I'll say. I'm going to go ahead and read the instructions here because I want to say that there was a couple of brackets that you have to install at the same time. Let's see. Yeah, actually, I guess reading the instructions is a good thing because sure enough, there's little L brackets that need to be screwed to the bottom side. There's 2 bottom holes, and it says these bottom brackets must be mounted to the bottom side of the VHX system. So good thing I did read this. Good thing I followed directions. It does say the shorter side of the L bracket goes on the VHX system. And it's actually not the shorter leg of the bracket, it's the shorter slot mounts to the VHX system. So make sure, as you can see, they can't see that far away, but one of these slots is actually longer than the other, so the short slot's what mounts to the VHX system. It does say to go ahead and put your cables in, so you've got the small 3 cables, orange, green, and blue. Connect that to the back of the unit and your Cat 5 cable to the back of the unit, and go ahead and install it in the dash. Alright, we're going to talk a little bit about the wiring on this. So on the main box here, this is the main VHX control box. There is a few things you got to look at on here. It has 3 slots for the fuel sender. On my car, I'm going to try and run just 1 wire, and that goes to the middle one, which is the fuel sending wire that's currently used on the gauges I have. The instructions say what they would like you to do, if possible, is to run a twisted wire pair back and ground it directly to the fuel sending unit, and then, of course, take the fuel sender positive wire, or signal wire, I guess is more what it is. Signal wire goes to the fuel send slot here, and that hooks up to the actual sending unit. I'm going to try and get away with just hooking up the single wire that I have now. It says you can try it and see if it works. You can also take a ground strap from the sending unit and ground it to the frame. This car's got no rust in it. It's a solid car, so I'm hoping the frame should be a good enough ground on there. For your oil sending unit, I've got the 3-wire sending unit on this gauge setup, but you only use the 2 slots. There's 3 slots. There's an oil negative, there's an oil sender, and then there's an oil positive. There's actually 4 wires on this sensor: red, black, white, and shield. And in this case, what I did was I put red to red, white to white, black, and shield to black. That is the actual correct wiring procedure for this setup. On this VHX unit for the 64 Falcons, you take the bare shield wire and the black negative wire and you put them in the same oil negative slot here. The red goes to the oil positive slot. The water sender for temperature is pretty self-explanatory: black to black, red to red. The one thing on this unit, on the front here, you do have these 2 momentary press switches as used for the odometer and the clock settings. There's 3 wires that come out of the back of this unit. The instructions tell you hook the red wire up to switch 1 and the green wire to switch 2 input on this box. Well, I don't have red, I've got orange. So looking up in this very vehicle specific, it says to hook the orange wire to switch 1, green wire to switch 2. I'm not going to be using the speed out sensors on these because I am running, like I said, I'm running the GPS unit. It's the GPS-50-2 unit. So this one, really all you need here is you need a ground, you need full battery power at all times, and accessories power for this, and then the supplied cable, the BIM input output, that connects to your aux input output slot on the VHX control box. This will also require a tack signal. If you have a tack, which these gauges do, you need your accessories power, a constant power / battery power. And if you are running a battery wire, say you're just running a wire right from here right to the positive of your battery, please put in a fuse. You can run just a small 5-amp fuse on this, will be fine. I'm actually going to tap into my radio power on this car. That way it's great. So if your gauges blow up, you don't have a radio. Who cares? But then you got to run a ground wire as well. I don't have 4x4 or a weight light. It's not a diesel. I don't have cruise, so I'm not going to be using any of those. I don't have a check engine light on this car. I don't have a brake light on this car. I do have a high beam and, of course, left and right indicator, which originally on the 64 Falcons, they didn't have a left or a right indicator. They just had a turn signal indicator, so you didn't know which, if you left it on, you just knew, hey, one of them's on, either left or right. But I have since rewired this car. This car does have individual indicator wires, so that'll work good for this. But I'm not going to show you the exact wiring as I'm doing it. It's kind of tedious, and I think you guys probably know how to connect wires. It's pretty simple, just a slotted screwdriver on a small jeweler screwdriver will crimp down on these. But that's it. We'll go ahead and we're going to mount this in the car, hook up the wiring, and then that's it. We're done. So I'll show you after I'm done, I'll show you where I mounted the boxes. I'll show the gauges mounted, and then we'll take the car out for a spin. All right, so I'm going to show you how to set up your speed sensor and your fuel sensor on this VHX Dakota Digital dash on a 64 Falcon, also 65 Mustang. So what you got to do is you have to hold button 1 or switch 1 in while you turn the key to the on position. So let me see if I can't balance this somehow, and we'll do it. So we'll hold and switch 1 in. We're going to turn it to on, and if you notice, it says setup on there. So right there, it automatically says speed setup in this window here. I don't know if you see it or not. So I'm going to press and hold switch 1. So there, now it says speed sender. So the next option, I'm going to hold switch 1 in again. Bus is what we want. So you're going to hold the switch in again because it's sending the GPS signal on the bus. All right, so now to change my fuel gauge level or fuel sensor level. Man, this thing does not want to focus, does it? So now I'm going to go in to set my fuel sender level. Press until this goes to done. For speed, hold it in. It's done. All right, it'll say done. Setup tack, no. Volt, no. Water, no. Oil, no. Fuel, that's what we're looking for. So you'll hold switch 1 in on fuel. And then it'll say fuel sender. Hold in switch 1 again. F10, which is what we need for this car. This is an older Ford, so it should be, I think it's 73 ohms empty, 10 ohms full typically, and that's what we want. So I'm going to hold it in again on F10 to select F10. Done, that's it. And then you just turn the key to off. So now you can go ahead and start your car, and you'll notice the fuel gauge go to full. Well, close to full. All right, there we go. So all our gauges are working. Horn works. So, all right, so all our gauges are working. You can see oil pressure's good. Volts are good, fuel level's good. I'm at 180 on temp, or just under 180 on temp, and the tachometer is also working. So rev it up, you see that works. You want to make sure the lights work, so go ahead and turn your lights on so you can see it, the lights illuminate. If I select my brights, you can see I get my bright indicator down there. Turn them off, and then you can go in on the screen here. So it's saying it's 9:18. That's incorrect. I got to change my time. But so this on the right side here, switch 2 will operate all that. So you can look at your BIM clock, it says 5:30. Compass, get the altimeter. High speeds 13 mile an hour on this trip. 0 to 60, 25.5 seconds. Quarter mile speed was 4. So we're moving. Quarter mile time, you got the digital tack readout, highest RPM, and then back to time. So that's it. So the gauge install is done. Let's go ahead and we'll take her for a rip. All right, we're going to take the 64 Falcon out for a spin. You have to, please excuse the fuel pump noise. This thing's got a big fuel pump, and it is loud. And the suspension's squeaking like crazy for some reason today. It's never done it before. I don't know if it's because it's damp out or what, but we'll go ahead and we'll take her for a short rip. All right, that's it for the Dakota Digital VHX dash install on this 1964 Falcon. It's powered by a 302 with a T5 transmission and a Phi-Tech 400 EFI unit. So it was a simple install, really straightforward, not much to it, just follow the directions. Even I can do it, that means anybody can. So, but install went well. Gauges look great, they perform well. I'm really happy with it. So that's it from Eats Rod Shop today. Appreciate you checking out the video. If you want, drop some comments down in the bottom. Just tell me what you thought of it. But have a good day. Remember, keep your head up and your stick on the ice.